The Central Academy training hall fell silent as Instructor Vrock Thorn swept his 6 eyes across the assembled cadets. His scales rippled with barely contained smugness, the way they always did when he was about to crush someone's hopes. "Welcome to Advanced Combat Theory," he announced, mandibles clicking. "I see we have another human in our class this cycle." Every head or head equivalent turned to stare at the lone figure slouched against the back wall. She was chewing something. Actually chewing during orientation, like she was at some kind of recreational facility instead of the most prestigious military academy in the Galactic Federation. Lieutenant Vrock Thorn's scales flushed purple. Name: Kai Brennan. She didn't straighten, didn't even stop chewing. Lieutenant Kai Brennan, Sir asterisk, Vrock Thorn corrected. Just Kai. Haven't taken the oath yet. Still technically a consultant. She blew a bubble with whatever disgusting substance she was masticating. It popped. "Sir." A Threxian cadet in the front row made a choking sound that might have been laughter. Vrock Thorn's primary eyes narrowed, while his auxiliary eyes kept scanning for other potential troublemakers. "Very well, asterisk. Just Kai, asterisk. Since you're so relaxed, perhaps you'd like to educate the class on the fundamental principles of ranged combat engagement." "Sure." Kai pushed off the wall, finally standing. She was tall for a human, maybe 6 feet, with dark hair pulled back in a practical knot and a scar that ran from her left eyebrow into her hairline. "Don't get shot. Shoot the other guy first. Stay behind cover. Conserve ammunition. Aim for center mass. Textbook recitation." How quaint. Vrock Thorn activated the holo display, and a 3-dimensional battlefield materialized between them. "Now, explain why no sentient species has ever successfully implemented dual-wielding firearms in actual combat." Kai tilted her head. "Because most species have terrible hand-eye coordination? The brood of the better." The classroom erupted. The Threxian was definitely laughing now. A Corthan cadet dropped her datapad. Even the usually stoic Vexen twins looked amused. Vrock Thorn's scales went from purple to a dangerous crimson. "Because," he said, voice dripping with venom, "the physiological requirements are impossible. Binocular vision can only track one primary target. Neural pathways cannot process dual trajectories simultaneously. Recoil management becomes exponentially complex. Ammunition expenditure doubles with minimal accuracy improvement. The mathematics alone prove it's a suicide tactic employed only by primitives who haven't discovered probability theory." "Huh?" Kai started walking down the aisle between seats. "That's a lot of words for, I can't do it. Nobody can do it. I can." The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It was the kind of silence that happens right before something explodes, or catches fire, or generally goes sideways in spectacular fashion. Vrock Thorn's laugh sounded like rocks in a grinder. "You, a human consultant who hasn't even sworn the oath. You believe you can accomplish what the finest warriors of 400 species across 8,000 years of recorded combat history have deemed physically impossible." "Yeah, basically." Kai reached the front of the classroom and turned to face the other cadets. "Anyone want to bet against me?" "This isn't a gambling establishment," Vrock Thorn roared. "No, it's a military academy. You teach combat tactics. I have a tactic. You say it doesn't work. I say it does. Sounds like we need a demonstration." A Faline cadet raised one crystalline appendage. "Instructor, I would like to see this. For educational purposes." "As would I," added the Threxian. "And I," said a Korthax whose name Kai hadn't learned yet. Vrock Thorn looked like he was calculating whether it was legal to eject a student out an airlock before they'd officially enrolled. His scales cycled through several colors before settling on a resigned gray. "Fine. Range 3. Tomorrow, 0800. If you survive the humiliation, perhaps it will serve as a lesson in human arrogance." Kai grinned. "Looking forward to it, teach?" That grin, Several species would later testify, should have been their first warning. Range 3 turned out to be less of a range and more of an entire simulated combat environment. Holographic projectors lined the walls, capable of generating everything from open desert to urban warfare scenarios. The weapons locker held enough firepower to level a small city, all carefully catalogued and monitored. Kai arrived early. Not fashionably early, not punctually early. Early enough that the night shift security officer did a double take when she walked in. "Aren't you supposed to be at morning formation?" The officer was Palaxian, all tentacles and curious nature. Got permission to skip. Special demonstration. Kai was already scanning the weapons locker. "You have any ballistic sidearms in here? Or is it all plasma and pulse?" "Ballistic? Like chemical propellant? Gunpowder? Bullets? Bang bang." The Palaxian's tentacles writhed in confusion. "Why would you want ancient technology? Call it nostalgia." Kai found what she was looking for. 2 matched revolvers, the kind that still saw use in backwater colonies where electromagnetic interference made modern weapons unreliable. She checked the cylinders, tested the weight, spun them both experimentally. "These'll do. Those are training replicas for historical demonstration. They fire real rounds though, right?" "Well, yes, but perfect." By the time 0800 rolled around, the gallery above the range was packed. Word had spread. Humans were always good for entertainment, whether through spectacular success or spectacular failure. Either way, credits would change hands. Instructor Vrock Thorn arrived with a full tactical assessment team. He wasn't taking chances. If this human somehow managed to not embarrass herself completely, he wanted documented proof that it was luck, not skill. "The scenario is simple," he announced, his voice echoing through the range. "Urban environment, 15 hostile targets, standard threat assessment protocol. You may use any method you choose. The simulation will track accuracy, response time, ammunition efficiency, and tactical decision-making." Kai loaded the revolvers. The metallic click of each chamber sliding home sounded unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. "Any questions?" Vrock Thorn asked. "Yeah. Do I get to pick the difficulty setting? It's already set to advanced. Can you bump it up?" The gallery went silent again. That was becoming a pattern around this human. Vrock Thorn's scales flickered through confusion, anger, and what might have been grudging respect. "To expert level? Sure. And maybe add a few more targets. 15 seems low. 25 targets. Expert difficulty. Close quarters engagement." Vrock Thorn leaned forward. "When you fail, I want it to be spectacular." Kai stepped into the simulation field, a revolver hanging loose in each hand. "Define failure." The holograms activated. Suddenly, Kai was standing in a narrow street lined with buildings, flickering lights, steam venting from unseen pipes. The perfect ambush environment. Somewhere overhead, a simulated hovercraft hummed past. The first target appeared in a third-story window. Most cadets would have taken cover, assessed the threat, calculated firing solutions. Kai just raised both revolvers and fired. 2 shots. Both revolvers discharged simultaneously. The target in the window dropped. A second target, that had been flanking from a doorway, also collapsed. "Lucky shots," someone muttered in the gallery. The third, fourth, and fifth targets appeared together. A classic crossfire pattern. Kai was already moving, both guns tracking independently. She fired the right revolver at the target on her left, while the left revolver took out the threat on her right. The center target ate 2 rounds, 1 from each gun. She wasn't even looking where she was shooting. Her eyes flicked between targets, her brain processing trajectories faster than the tactical computers could track. It wasn't supposed to be possible. Neural pathways weren't designed for this. Binocular vision didn't work that way. Brennan apparently hadn't read the manual. Target 6 tried to flank from behind. She twisted, both revolvers crossing her body, and fired without breaking stride. Target 7 dropped from a rooftop and caught a bullet before hitting the ground. Targets 8 and 9 rushed from separate alleyways and got synchronized headshots. The gallery had stopped keeping score. They were just watching now, transfixed. Kai reloaded without looking, fingers flying through the motion with mechanical precision. 12 more targets remained. The simulation was escalating, adding smoke, reducing visibility, increasing complexity. The AI running the scenario was genuinely trying to kill her now, pulling out every trick in its database. Target 10 threw a grenade. Kai shot it mid-air. The explosion created a smoke screen. She used it, disappearing into the artificial haze. When she emerged, 3 more targets were down, and she hadn't stopped moving. The Threxian cadet was taking notes. Actual, physical notes. Like this was something that could be learned from observation. Targets 14 through 17 tried a pincer movement. Kai went vertical, somehow finding handholds on a holographic building and hauling herself up one-handed while still firing. Every shot landed. Every target dropped. The last 8 targets appeared simultaneously. The simulation's final desperation move. Overwhelming force from all directions. Kai landed in the center of the kill zone, both revolvers empty. For one heartbeat, she was exposed, vulnerable, surrounded. Then, she dropped the revolvers and pulled 2 more from hidden holsters. She hadn't come with just 1 pair, because of course she hadn't. The last 8 shots rang out in a symphony of controlled chaos. Each bullet found its mark. The simulation flickered and died. 25 targets neutralized, 0 hits taken. Ammunition efficiency, 100%. Tactical assessment. Flawless. The gallery remained silent. Not the angry silence or the anticipatory silence. The kind of silence that happens when you've just watched someone rewrite reality and your brain is still catching up. Instructor Vrackthorn stared at the tactical readout like it had personally offended him. His scales were cycling through colors so fast, he looked like a malfunctioning display panel. Kai walked out of the simulation field, casually reloading all 4 revolvers. So, about that lesson in human arrogance? The Threxian cadet started clapping. Then, the Faline joined in. Within seconds, the entire gallery was erupting in cheers, whistles, and various alien sounds of approval. Vrackthorn held up one clawed hand. The noise died reluctantly. This proves nothing. You practiced this specific scenario. You memorized the target patterns. You... Pick another scenario, Kai interrupted. Right now. Surprise me. That's not or. We can call it a day, and you can explain to the Academy Board why you refuse to let your students learn from a successful tactical demonstration. Kai holstered 2 of the teched revolvers and casually checked the sights on the other 2. Your choice, Teach. Every eye in the gallery turned to Vrackthorn. His scales settled into a resigned purple. Fine. Scenario 7 Beta. Shipboard engagement, 0 gravity, moving targets. Now we're talking. Kai walked back to the starting position. This scenario was different, harder. No ground to push off from, no gravity to help predict trajectories. The simulation placed her in a damaged cargo bay, atmosphere venting, with hostile boarders using the debris field as cover. She launched herself into the 0G environment like she'd been born there, both revolvers already firing. In 0 gravity, recoil became a navigation tool. Every shot pushed her in a new direction. She used it, turning combat into a 3-dimensional dance of violence and geometry. The first wave of targets never knew what hit them. The second wave tried to adapt, spreading out, using the environment. Kai used it better. She ricocheted shots off bulkheads, used debris for cover and as projectiles. At one point, she kicked a floating cargo container at a target while simultaneously shooting 2 others. When the simulation ended, Vrackthorn didn't even check the tactical readout. He just stared at Kai as she drifted back to the starting platform, rotating slowly in the microgravity. "How?" he finally asked. Not angry anymore, just genuinely baffled. Kai grabbed a handhold and pulled herself to stability. "You want the technical answer, or the fun answer?" "Technical. Humans process visual information through a split-brain system. Left hemisphere, right hemisphere. We can track multiple moving objects simultaneously because we evolved as hunters. Pursuit predators. We literally evolved to chase things down across long distances while coordinating complex motor functions. Add in about 10,000 hours of practice and muscle memory that's basically hardwired at this point, and yeah, I can shoot 2 guns at once." "And the fun answer?" Kai grinned. "I'm just really stubborn." The gallery erupted again. Even some of the other instructors who had arrived to watch were showing signs of approval. A human who could back up her arrogance with skill was a rare and entertaining thing. Vrackthorn's scales finally settled on a resigned blue. "You may continue attending my class. Try not to make the other cadets feel inadequate. No promises, teach." As the crowd dispersed and the range cleared, the Threxian cadet approached Kai. Up close, he was even more imposing. Easily 7 feet of chitinous armor and multiple limbs, but his posture was respectful. "That was extraordinary. I am called Torvin. Would you consider teaching a supplementary class on human combat techniques?" "Maybe, if I stick around." Kai was cleaning the revolvers with practiced efficiency. "Still haven't decided if I'm taking the oath or just consulting for a while." "Why wouldn't you stay?" "Because," Kai said quietly, "every time I've joined something official, people end up dead. I'm trying to break that pattern." Before Torvin could respond, an alarm blared through the facility. Not a drill alarm, the real thing. Red lights strobed. The facility's AI voice cut through everything. "All personnel to combat stations. Unknown vessels approaching system. Repeat. Unknown vessels approaching." This is not a drill. Kai was already moving, checking weapons, assessing sight lines. Whatever was coming, it wasn't going to be a simulation. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, she should have kept her mouth shut about the whole dual-wielding thing. Because the universe had a sense of humor, and it usually showed up at the worst possible time. The command center looked like controlled chaos having a panic attack. Officers shouted coordinates, holographic displays flickered with incoming data. And standing in the middle of it all, looking remarkably calm for someone whose species wasn't supposed to be there, was Admiral Thexvara. She was Draxian, which meant she had 4 arms, iridescent skin that shifted colors with her mood, and a reputation for eating junior officers who disappointed her. Metaphorically. Probably. "Brennan." Thexvara didn't look up from the tactical display. "Why am I not surprised you're here?" "Good timing," Kai offered. "Terrible timing. We have 8 unidentified vessels dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They're not responding to hails. Their weapon signatures are off the charts, and according to our sensors, they're heading straight for the Academy." Kai moved to the display, studying the formation. "That's a raid pattern. Fast strike, overwhelming force, gone before reinforcements arrive." "Astute observation, which is why I'm evacuating all non-essential personnel to the inner bunkers." Thexvara finally looked at Kai, her eyes cycling through concerned yellow. "That includes cadets and consultants who haven't sworn the oath. Or," Kai said slowly, "you could use someone who just demonstrated she can handle multiple targets in high-stress scenarios. With training weapons against holograms. I don't miss in real life either." Thexvara's skin flickered to annoyed orange. "You have a death wish. I have a skill set. 8 ships means maybe 200 hostiles if they're serious about boarding. Your garrison has, what, 50 combat-ready personnel? You need every gun you can get." "She's right." Instructor Vrock Thorn had entered without anyone noticing, which was impressive for someone his size. His scales were battle gray now, all pretense of classroom superiority gone. I may have underestimated the human. She's effective. High praise from you, Thexvara muttered. She studied Kai for a long moment. Fine. But you follow orders. No heroic nonsense. This isn't a demonstration. Understood. I'm assigning you to secondary cargo bay defense. If they breach the outer hull, that's one of 3 likely entry points. Hold the position. Keep them from reaching the civilian shelters. Kai nodded. What am I working with? Whatever you can carry. Thexvara gestured to an equipment officer. Get her loaded. Standard combat kit. 10 minutes later, Kai was strapped into light tactical armor and carrying enough weapons to make a small army jealous. The revolvers were still there, holstered at her hips. But now, she had a pulse rifle, mag-locked, to her back, grenades on her belt, and a combat knife strapped to her thigh. The secondary cargo bay was massive, filled with supply crates and equipment. Perfect cover. Terrible sight lines. Exactly the kind of place where close-quarters combat got messy. Torvin was already there, along with 3 other cadets who had apparently volunteered for this insanity. A Vexon named Mira, a Korthax called Druk, and a nervous-looking Palaxian who introduced himself as Ven. So, Torvin said cheerfully, we're all probably going to die. Not helpful, Mira snapped. She was checking her plasma carbine with the kind of focus that suggested she'd rather be anywhere else. I prefer optimistic realism, Torvin replied. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and defending a position with no reinforcement options, but we have Kai, who apparently breaks the laws of physics for fun. Stop talking about me like I'm some kind of legend, Kai said, setting up firing positions behind a large cargo container. I'm just stubborn with good aim. That's what all legends say, Druk rumbled. He was setting up a heavy repeating blaster on a tripod, the kind that could cut through armor plating. Then they do something impossible, and everyone writes songs. Nobody's writing songs. We're going to hold this position, keep the hostiles busy until the fleet arrives, and go get dinner. Kai finished her preparations and turned to face the group. Ven, you're on sensors. Call out positions and numbers. Mira, you're with Druk on heavy fire. Torvin, you're mobile with me. We'll handle anything that gets through the initial barrage. You're taking command? Mira asked. Someone has to. And I've got seniority and actual combat experience. Kai's tone didn't invite argument. Questions? Questions? Silence. Good. Now we wait. They didn't wait long. The first explosion shook the entire station. Alarms screamed. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in angry red. Hull breach in Section 7, Ven announced, his tentacles wrapped around the sensor console. They're cutting through fast. Multiple signatures. I count 20. No, 30 hostiles heading our way. Here we go, Kai muttered. She drew both revolvers, checked the loads, and settled into a shooting stance behind cover. Remember, short, controlled bursts. Don't waste ammunition. And whatever happens, do not let them reach the civilian corridor behind us. Not cut. Exploded. The hostiles weren't bothering with subtlety. And they weren't any species Kai recognized. Tall, armored, moving with coordinated precision. Their weapons hummed with lethal energy. Mercenaries, probably. Well-trained ones. Light them up, Kai shouted. Druk's heavy blaster opened fire, a continuous stream of superheated plasma that turned the first 3 hostiles into vapor. Mira added her carbine to the symphony, picking off targets with quick precision shots. But there were so many of them. They scattered, using cover, suppressing fire, all the tactics of a professional military force. Kai started firing. Left revolver took out a hostile moving up the left flank. Right revolver caught another trying to circle around cargo containers. Her hands moved independently, each weapon tracking separate targets, her brain processing the chaos into clear, tactical decisions. Torvin was beside her, his own weapon barking steady fire. "There are too many." "Then we need to make them think there are more of us," Kai replied. She was already moving, darting between cover, firing from different positions, creating the illusion of multiple defenders. A hostile burst through their line, heading straight for Ven. Kai twisted, both revolvers tracking, and put 2 rounds through the attacker's helmet before they could fire. "Behind you!" Mira screamed. Kai dropped flat. A plasma bolt scorched the air where her head had been. She rolled, came up shooting, and added another hostile to the growing pile of bodies. But they kept coming. Wave after wave, professional, relentless. "Then, status!" Kai shouted over the gunfire. "More breaches! Section 9 and Section 12! They're spreading out, trying to overwhelm all defensive positions." Which meant help wasn't coming. Every defender was pinned down in their own firefight. Kai ejected spent cylinders, reloaded while moving, never stopped firing. One of the hostiles got close enough to throw a grenade. Kai shot it midair, just like in the simulation. Except this time the explosion was real and nearly knocked her off her feet. "West Corridor!" Druk called out. "They're trying to flank!" Torvin pivoted, laying down covering fire. But his weapon overheated, the plasma chamber glowing dangerous red. He'd pushed it too hard. 3 hostiles saw the opening and charged. Kai was there. Both revolvers up, firing in rapid succession. The first hostile dropped. The second took 2 hits center mass. The third got close enough that Kai could see the surprise in their eyes before her final bullet ended them. "Reload!" she shouted to Torvin. "I've got your 6. And then the lights went out. Emergency power died. The cargo bay plunged into darkness. Only the faint glow of energy weapons and burning equipment provided any illumination. "Night vision!" Mira yelled. But humans didn't need night vision. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters who tracked prey for hours across changing terrain. Their eyes adapted faster than most species realized. Kai kept firing. In the darkness, muzzle flash became her beacon. Every shot illuminated the battlefield for a split second. She used those moments, processing positions, trajectories, threats. The hostiles had night vision equipment. They thought darkness gave them an advantage. They were wrong. Kai moved like a ghost, using sound, using memory of the cargo bay layout, using pure instinct honed over years of combat. Her revolvers sang their lethal song. Every flash revealed another target. Every target fell. Somewhere in the chaos, she heard Thexvara's voice over the intercom. "All units, hold positions. Fleet reinforcements arriving in 10 minutes. Repeat, 10 minutes." 10 minutes might as well have been 10 hours. A massive, hostile, easily 8 feet tall and armored like a tank, burst through their defensive line. Druk's heavy blaster caught it square in the chest. The armor held. The hostile laughed, a deep rumbling sound that promised violence, and raised a weapon that looked like it could punch through bulkheads. Kai didn't think. She just moved. She holstered the revolvers mid-sprint, pulled the pulse rifle off her back, and fired a sustained burst at the hostile's weapon. The energy discharge overloaded the weapon's power cell. It exploded in the hostile's hands. Then Kai was on them, using the rifle as a club, smashing it into the hostile's helmet with enough force to crack the faceplate. The hostile staggered. Kai drew her combat knife and found the gap in the armor at the neck joint. The hostile went down hard. "Okay," Torvin said into the sudden quiet that followed. "That was terrifying. We're not done yet." Kai was bleeding from a dozen minor cuts and burns. Her armor was scored from near misses. But her hands were steady as she reloaded the revolvers. Again. "Ven. How many left?" Sensors are damaged. I'm reading maybe 15 hostiles still active in our sector. But Kai, there's something else. A signature I don't recognize. Something big heading our way. Define big. The far wall of the cargo bay exploded. Not a door, not a breach. The entire wall just ceased to exist in a shower of molten metal and superheated air. Standing in the smoking gap was something out of a nightmare. 10 feet tall, quad-jointed limbs, armor that looked like it had been forged from a collapsed star, and in each of its 4 hands, weapons that hummed with barely contained destruction. "That's there, Commander," Kai said quietly. "Has to be." The creature spoke, its voice like grinding metal. "Surrender. Your defense is admirable but futile. We will take this station. You will die." "Counter-offer," Kai said, stepping forward into full view, both revolvers aimed at the creature's center mass. "You leave, right now. Take your wounded and go. Nobody else has to die today." The creature laughed. Actually laughed. One human, with primitive kinetic weapons. "You think to threaten me?" "I think," Kai said calmly, "that you're used to people being scared of you. Big armor, big guns, big reputation. But here's the thing about humans. We're really, really bad at knowing when we're beaten." She fired, both revolvers, simultaneously, not at the creature, at the damaged wall behind it. At the structural supports she'd noticed were already compromised from the explosion. The supports gave way. Tons of bulkhead and ceiling collapsed on the creature. It roared, trying to move, but the weight was too much even for its enhanced armor. Kai was already moving, darting forward while the creature was pinned. She emptied both revolvers into the gaps in its armor. The weak points, the joints, the spots where protection gave way to mobility. The creature thrashed, its weapons fired wildly. One blast nearly took Kai's head off. She rolled under another, came up close, and placed her final shot directly into the creature's helmet at point-blank range. It stopped moving. The remaining hostiles saw their commander fall, saw this lone human standing over their leader's corpse, empty revolvers still smoking in her hands. And they did what any rational being would do when faced with something that defied all tactical logic. They ran. "Secure the area," Kai said tiredly. She was reloading again. Muscle memory at this point. "Make sure they're really gone." Torvin approached slowly. "You just killed a warlord-class combat unit. Those things are supposed to be unkillable. Everything's killable if you're creative enough." Kai holstered the revolvers and immediately sat down on a cargo crate. Now that the adrenaline was fading, she could feel every bruise, every burn, every muscle screaming in protest. "Someone want to get me a medic? I think I'm bleeding from places that shouldn't bleed." The fleet arrived 6 minutes later. By then, the remaining hostiles were retreating to their ships, and the Academy's defenders were securing their positions. The battle was over. The station had held. Admiral Thexvara found Kai in the medical bay, getting stitches and being lectured by a very annoyed Draxian doctor about reckless behavior and human fragility. "Brennan." Thexvara dismissed the doctor with a gesture. "You disobeyed orders. You engaged in unnecessary heroics. You showed off." "Yes, ma'am." "You also saved approximately 200 civilian lives, held a critical defensive position against overwhelming odds, and killed a mercenary warlord with weapons that most species consider obsolete." "Also yes, ma'am." Thexvara's skin cycled through several colors before settling on amused green. "The oath ceremony is tomorrow. I expect you to attend." "Ma'am, I told you. I'm not sure I'm ready to." "That wasn't a request, Lieutenant Brennan. You're already one of us. Might as well make it official." Kai opened her mouth to argue. Closed it. Opened it again. "The dual-wielding thing is really that impressive, huh? The dual-wielding thing is impossible. You doing it anyway is very human." Thexvara turned to leave, then paused. "By the way, Instructor Vrock Thorn wants to redesign his entire curriculum based on your combat methodology. He's calling it proof that humans are either evolutionarily blessed or cosmically lucky. Which does he think it is? Both, simultaneously. It's giving him a migraine. Thexvara smiled, which on a Draxian looked vaguely threatening. Welcome to the fleet, Lieutenant. Try not to rewrite too many. More tactical manuals. Later, after the medical staff had finished patching her up, and the initial debriefing was complete, Kai found herself back at the range. The physical range this time, not the simulation. She stood alone in the quiet space, revolvers in hand, not firing, just feeling their weight. Torvin found her there. You know, he said, settling against the wall, most legends start with someone doing the impossible and everyone thinking it was luck. But you kept doing impossible things, over and over. What's the human saying? Once is chance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is a pattern? Something like that. So, what's the pattern here? What makes humans able to do things everyone else says can't be done? Kai holstered the revolvers and turned to face him. Honestly, I think it's because we don't know any better. Every other species in the galaxy learns all the reasons why something won't work before they try it. Humans just try stuff and figure out the reasons later. That seems incredibly dangerous. Oh, it absolutely is. We blow ourselves up regularly, hurt ourselves doing stupid things, make mistakes that should be fatal. She smiled. But sometimes, just sometimes, we pull off something amazing because we didn't know we weren't supposed to. Define can't? Torvin quoted softly. Yeah, define can't. Kai started walking toward the exit. Come on! I heard there's some kind of celebration happening in the cadet mess. Apparently, surviving your first real combat is tradition for those who survive. Well, we managed that part. Might as well enjoy it. As they left the range, the lights dimmed automatically behind them. But in the darkness, 2 empty shell casings rolled across the floor, glinting in the emergency lighting. Evidence of the impossible. Proof that sometimes the best response to being told something can't be done is simply to do it anyway. And somewhere in the Academy records, a new footnote was being added to the Tactical Combat Manual, right under the section on dual-wielding firearms, which had previously read, inadvisable, impossible, do not attempt. The new notation was simple. C. Brennan, K. Human exception to standard doctrine. Recommend further study. Recommend extreme caution if attempting to replicate. Recommend humans be given whatever weapons they want and pointed at the enemy. Because, in the end, that was the real lesson. Not that humans could dual-wield guns, but that sometimes the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy wasn't the biggest gun, or the smartest AI, or the most advanced technology. Sometimes it was just one stubborn human who refused to accept the word impossible. And 2 revolvers. Always the 2 revolvers.